Welcome everyone to Triple S Reviews. In this video we're going to be looking at Alien Earth Season 1 Episode 2. Fair warning, this video will contain spoilers. Now, let's begin. Episode 2, Mr. October, opens with Hermit, Siberian and Rashidi finding more Maginot crew who didn't die due to the crash. Rashidi asks Hermit about him saying how one of the dead bodies had foreign bodies inside of it, and Hermit name drops the franchise Alien. We also see there is a Xeno stalking the trio. Back at Neverland, Dame Sylvia and Boy Cavalier have a conversation where Cavalier essentially says, even though he's a trillionaire, he isn't making hybrids for money or ego, but to hopefully create someone smarter than him to talk to. It's like he's L from Death Note, but even more of a prick. And no, I will not do the CinemaSins thing of bad guy eating an apple to look like more of an asshole, because I'm not a fan of CinemaSins. Moving on. The Lost Boys and Kirsch are still in a helicopter heading to the crash site, and Wendy tells Slightly her secret that she has a brother. And it's her fault he's at the crash site, so she's going to find him and make sure he doesn't die. Slightly tells Wendy that his dad died of a cold and was burned on a pyre, but he worried afterwards if his dad was really dead and they'd burned him alive. Like Nikki and Paolo in Lost, but with fire instead of dirt. This just brings me back to the theory that the kids' minds weren't transferred into their new synth bodies, but copied, and the still living kids with their still living minds were euthanized. Back at the crash site, Hermit, Rashidi and Siberian have to jump a gap to continue through the building. Rashidi makes the jump, Siberian narrowly avoids falling to her death by Rashidi grabbing her, and Hermit is about to jump when Liquid pours onto his shoulder from a dark hole above him. Turns out the Liquid is Xenodrool, and the Xeno lunges at Hermit from the darkness. They both try to jump the gap, but Hermit doesn't make it, slamming into the edge of the landing Siberian and Rashidi are on, then landing hard on the landing below, but channeling his inner Renard from The World Is Not Enough. Hermit doesn't feel the pain from these impacts and runs off with the Xeno hot on his heels. He makes it to a lift, if you didn't know, yes, I am British, which opens and closes incredibly quickly, saving Hermit from the Xeno. I guess Prodigy lifts have a I'm being chased and I'm about to die button or something. As he tries and fails to radio for help, then bandages his injured arm, we flash back to one day earlier. Hermit is at an affairs office trying to get out of serving his last 7 months as a Prodigy medic so that he can go to medical school on Mars. Which is a scene very reminiscent of Rain going to an affairs office so that she and her brother Andy can leave Jackson's star in Alien Romulus. Rain though speaks to a human who denies her, whereas Hermit speaks to a robot. Which is a good thing for Wendy, who is watching her brother via her tablet, as when Hermit says a line from Ice Age Continental Drift at the robot,
face my fury.
Wendy hacks into the robot via her tablet to have it say back the next line of dialogue from Ice Age 4.
Face your furry what?
Then deny his request. This startles Hermit obviously because he's just had Ice Age 4 quoted back at him before being denied, but it also startles the Prodigy team who are monitoring Wendy as they didn't realise she was able to hack robots. This explains what Hermit meant when he told Siberian and Rashidi that a robot said he had to serve out his contract back before the crash of the Maginot in episode 1. And also why Wendy told Slightly it was her fault that he was at the crash site. She had denied his resignation. If it wasn't for her, he'd be on Mars. Sid the Sloth fading in next to Wendy's head was also unintentionally hilarious. Like, I know it's Wendy remembering, and it's meant to remind the audience as well, but still, it was funny to see Sid the Sloth of all people appear out of nowhere. Back in the present, the Lost Boys helicopter finally lands at the crash site and Wendy immediately starts hearing a buzzing noise that no one else can. They head into a tent and Kirsch talks with a Colonel Nag, while Wendy searches through camera feeds looking for her brother, finding him still in his lift. Wendy rushes off and Kirsch tells Slightly to go with her, while the rest of the team will follow him into the Maginot. Returning to Neverland, we see for a second time a person in a hazmat suit spraying a wall, with the first time being in episode 1. I believe this is in reality a messed up synth that's just stuck in this position spraying 24/7. That's why the wall actually looks like that. Atom Ines brings Boy Cavalier a tablet saying Yutani is on the line. Yutani tells Cavalier she insists on sending in her own people to secure the Maginot, but obviously Cavalier isn't going to allow that. And he hangs up on her after saying, if you come onto my land, we're at war, This is going to have to be sorted out through lawyers. Goodbye. We next get a montage of Kirsch, Curly, Smee, Tootles and Nibs following the path of Hoyt and Anant to the specimen lab, while Wendy and Slightly follow the path of Hermit, Siberian and Rashidi. Outside of the lab, Kirsch's team find a plant-looking alien hanging from the ceiling. He sends Smee, Curly and Nibs into the lab to find something to capture it with, and upon entering they see Hoyt and Anant drained of blood. The blood bug that drained Anant scurries away and they follow, coming across a very messed up looking cat. I wonder if the poor thing's actually already dead or not, but it definitely is when its left eye pops out of its head, revealing itself to be the eyeball squid. It launches itself at Nibs, wanting to replace one of her eyes, but Curly and Smee manage to trap it under a metal container. I like how in Peter Pan, Nibs is described as possibly being the bravest lost boy, which is not how I would describe Nibs in this show. I would say she's actually the most afraid out of all the Prodigy lost boys. Switching to Wendy and Slightly, they find Hermit's backpack, and switching to Hermit, he's found by Bergerfeld. They both hear voices in a nearby room and knock to find a French nobility-themed party going on inside, despite all the whole spaceship crashing into their building debacle. But the French dandy ignores Hermit and Bergerfeld, telling him they need to evacuate, and closes the door in their faces. The Xeno, probably pissed at having to take the stairs while Hermit took the lift, inner jaws Bergerfeld's face, causing Bergerfeld's body to hold the trigger on his pulse rifle, and in turn causing the French dandy to look outside, wondering what all the noise is about. The Xeno then throws Bergerfeld's body at Hermit and joins the party, murdering the entire French aristocracy.
Vive la Révolution.
Hermit grabs the pulse rifle and heads into the party to find the Xeno, finding only dead bodies and the dandy bifurcated at the waist and crawling around. The Xeno sneak attacks Hermit, but instead of immediately killing him, it just smacks him around a bit before climbing on top of him. Does the Xeno have a thing for Hermit or something? I mean, it chased him all the way here, and now when it could easily kill him, it chooses not to? In any case, the Xeno is suddenly tasered by Morrow, who tases Hermit for good measure, then sprays the Xeno till it's cocooned and drags it away. Shifting to Kirsch and Tootles, Kirsch says this line,
It presents as flora, but it may be fauna.
Which I don't know why, but it tickles a certain pleasurable area in my brain. Does it do the same for anyone else? Smee calls Kirsch into the lab, and being warned by Nibs to not accidentally release the eyeball squid, he instead plugs into the Maginot's computers to learn about their mission and their specimens. Back with Morrow, he's put down his gun and is about to drag the Xeno into a lift when Prodigy Search and Rescue show up, telling him he has to leave. Two of the Search and Rescue appear to be twins, just like the final two members of the Lost Boys in Peter Pan. They notice movement in the cocoon and point their guns at Morrow, who tries to de-escalate the situation by calling them friend. But they retort they're not his friend, just like how when Hoyt called Morrow brother in the previous episode, he said he wasn't their brother. In any case, this scene is kinda stupid. The Search and Rescue team saw movement in the cocoon, but just stay aimed at Morrow, completely ignoring the Xeno breaking out of the cocoon until it's too late and it massacres them all in seconds. For some reason though, it doesn't kill Morrow. Have the Xeno's affections shifted away from Hermit to Morrow? Also during this scene, just like when Hoyt and Anant realised Morrow was a cyborg, when these guys realise he's a cyborg, they just need to say it out loud. Is this meant to be like a prejudice thing, or is it meant to be a reminder to the audience that he's a cyborg, not a synth? And we see with him being a cyborg, he has not just a welding torch as part of his hand, but also a blade. If you haven't guessed already, I'm pretty sure when comparing characters from this show to Peter Pan, Morrow I believe is meant to represent Captain Hook. Hence him having a multi-tool for a hand, just like Captain Hook can switch out his hook to fit his needs. You could say the Xeno then might represent the crocodile, but then why doesn't the croc eat Hook here then? I mean, it takes out a bunch of people, spares Morrow, and heads off to take out a bunch more people. Hopefully we get an explanation for this. Back with Tootles, finally the alien plant does something interesting by extending out a tentacle thing in Tootles' direction. But before anything else can happen, Curly calls Tootles into the lab. Kirsch spots a collection of Xeno eggs via the cameras and orders Smee to join up with Wendy and head there. Speaking of Wendy, she and Slightly have caught up to the massacre outside the party room, and heading inside find Hermit looking at a baseball signed by Reggie Jackson, a famous American baseball player whose nickname was Mr. October, triggering Hermit's childhood memories of his father. Hermit is oddly calm despite having just been attacked by a Xeno and tasered by a guy. He even scoffs at Slightly, saying it must have been a bear that killed everyone outside. The only thing I can think of besides bad writing is that maybe being tasered messed with Hermit's short-term memory. In any case, Slightly reveals he and Wendy are synthetic, with Wendy giving us an aliens reference when she says,
Oh, we don't like that word.
I prefer the term artificial person myself.
Kirsch radios that he needs Wendy to meet up with Smee and secure cargo at the front of the ship. That he doesn't care they found Wendy's brother and her and Slightly need to stop acting like children, causing Slightly to say they're not children anymore. Wendy convinces Hermit to join them, and along the way he asks why Slightly said they weren't children anymore. Slightly just reveals everything to Hermit about them being human minds in synth bodies and that Wendy is actually his sister, Marcy. Wendy tells Hermit it is her, that she's been watching him. She quotes Ice Age 4 again and tells him this is all because of Boy Cavalier. Hermit asks her questions from their childhood, only she would know until he's convinced it is indeed her, and they hug. I've seen people say on the subreddit r/LV426 that they thought it was going to take more episodes than this before Hermit learned the truth. Just like how they thought it wouldn't be till maybe mid-season that we got to see a Xeno properly. And I agree with those who say they're glad the show had Hermit learn the truth early on, so that we see this dynamic of a reunited brother and sister play out in more detail compared to say if Hermit only learned Wendy was his sister in the final few episodes. Hermit, Wendy and Slightly reach the Xeno eggs, and the blue egg mist makes its third on-screen appearance in the Alien franchise, the first being in the first Alien movie and its second in Alien Romulus. And still, no one has any idea what the mist is all about. The first Alien movie, Romulus and now Earth make no attempt to explain it, and Earth actually makes it even more confusing by having the beam of light at the top of the mist turn off in a very technological way, casting doubt on people's theories that the blue glow was a part of the eggs itself. But then, why was there a beam of light causing mist to turn blue on the space station in Romulus? It wasn't like it was in a cargo room where Xeno eggs had been stored, it was in a random corridor that had been taken over by the Xenos. So did the Xenos set it up? I know they've been described as looking biomechanical, but come on, that'd be taking it too far. Anyway, back to Alien Earth. When Hermit enters the blue mist, as well as the beam of light turning off, Wendy starts hearing a loud buzzing. Wendy can hear the buzzing when others can't because she can hear beyond human frequencies, as revealed during her hearing test in episode 1. And the most likely theory I've seen of what she's hearing is that it's the xenomorph hive mind. Hermit entered the mist and most likely the eggs started calling out to the Xeno, who makes a beeline to them as fast as possible. The reason I believe it does this instead of letting the eggs open and the facehuggers within do what they do best is because the eggs for some reason just aren't ready to open. I mean, Hermit puts his face right up to one and all it does is undulate, it doesn't open. And the Xeno tackling Hermit out of the hole in the wall instead of just killing all three of them to protect the eggs. I dunno man, maybe the Xeno thinks he might have a second chance at a relationship with Hermit if they could just have some alone time together. In any case, I do love before Wendy runs off to go find her brother, again, that she tells Slightly to guard the omelette. And credits. That was Alien Earth Episode 2 titled Mr. October. If you thought Episode 1 was slow and boring and were worried the rest of the show was going to be like that, Episode 2, I think, just destroys those worries. The action, tension, and horror are all ramped up in a very gory fashion, and I absolutely loved it. While the Xeno steals the show, the other aliens are also a major highlight of the episode. Just the terror of the eyeball squid and the mysteriousness of the plant and blood bugs, like where did they go and what are they doing with all that blood? Again, the entire cast were perfect, and I don't think that's going to change for the entire series. I cannot see a bad performance coming from anyone in this show going forward. Unless, of course, new characters are introduced, and who knows, they could be terrible, but I doubt it. The casting so far has been a knockout. My only gripes I have with this episode is the level of plot armor and some inconsistent characterization. Specifically in regards to Hermit and how the Xeno just continues to not kill him ever, and how he seemed to just forget he'd been attacked after being tased. But like I said before, you could just explain that away as him being tasered messed up his memory, so while I say it's a criticism, it's only a very light criticism. I love seeing how much practical effects they're doing for the Xeno, only going the CGI route when the Xeno's doing things you can't pull off practically. And when it is CGI, it still looks great, as does all the CGI in this show, especially when it comes to the other aliens, they look so amazing and creepy. This episode, in terms of character, was mainly a Hermit-centric episode. We've been hearing such high praise for Hermit from Wendy, but in this episode we get to see it. Obviously when he needs to, he runs for his goddamn life from the Xeno as any sane person would, but then we also see him immediately try to warn others before patching himself up, and then later he picks up a gun and takes the fight to the Xeno. He never forgets his manners. He goes straight into medic mode when he thinks Slightly is injured, and in the flashback we see him trying to fulfill the promise he made to his late father to go back to medical school. This episode was Hermit's time to shine. To round all this off, my favourite part of the entire episode was the cat and eyeball squid scene. Just so gory and terrifying, and the eyeball squid is such a great alien creature design. especially with how it can separate its pupil and iris into multiple. That's so cool. Thank you everyone for watching Triple S Reviews. If you enjoyed the video, and I hope you did, give it a like to let me know. If you want to see more, then make sure to subscribe and check your subscriptions tab, not the home tab, for new videos. I also have a variety channel where I post a variety of different videos. If any of them interest you, check them out. I've been Triple S, you've all been amazing, and I shall see you all in the next video.